Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever it is where you are, and welcome back to another episode on the Annoyed Dad channel. Today, as you can see by the video title and the thumbnail, we are going to try to start the International Harvester tractor. Now, you may remember from my last video, the spring cleanup, I asked for your opinions on this tractor. What should we do with it? Should we leave it? Should we sell it? Should we wait for the buyer? Whatever. The overwhelming majority of people said, start it, get it going. Let's see this thing actually going. So that's what we're going to do. So a little bit of history on it before we start. We have owned this farm now for virtually 2 years. This was here when we bought it. It was part of the package. It was included along with the MF35 and the Fordson Dexter, which is over the back there, which is what we use for our main day-to-day jobs, shall we say. So this one was parked up. It was parked up underneath the tree over there at the back, and we've left it. We've done nothing with it. Advertised it for sale because we were just going to use the MF35 and the Dexter on the farm. Advertised it for sale, found a buyer. Buyer liked it. They wanted to come, try to get it going, get things done on it before they moved it off the farm. That was over a year ago that they first started coming up. I haven't heard anything from them in over 6 months now. So, you know, it's just like, yeah, fine. Let's move on. Let's see what we can do. So we're going to try to start it. When they came down, they tinkered with it. They had the engine ticking over, but they didn't put any magic juice in the air intake to actually try to get it started. I don't know why he was a bit reluctant to, but anyway, that's them. This is me. I don't care, I'm just going to try to get it started, right? We're like, this is going to be a proper full-on will it start. So, first of all, let's look around it, see what we've got, see what we're dealing with, and where we go from here. So, it is an International Harvester. If you don't know the brand International, you probably know the brand Case. Yep. So, I'm not quite sure what happened, if one brought out the other, or if they just changed names and merged and whatever. But anyway, International Harvester Company of Great Britain Limited, model B275. It's a diesel, and we got the serial number there for it as well. So for those of you who like these sort of things, it is a B275. You'll know that. This is the engine. This thing here, I presume, is the hydraulic pump, because it's got a label on it that says hydraulic pump. We've got a filter there for oil, possibly. Checking the dippy sticky. We can see we got plenty of oil. Here's a very dark oil, but for our purposes, it's got oil. That's what matters. So then we'll jump back and looking around it. The brakes have seized. That's a big problem that we had. When the guy was trying to move it previously, this side had seized and it wouldn't roll at all. He was then able to free them up, and we rolled it a little bit. Then you might have seen in other videos when I put it here, basically there was just 2 massive skid marks where I just dragged it in the end because the brakes are seized. Now I'm hoping that when the engine gets going, we might be able to use the power of the engine to brake the brakes, if that makes sense. So it'll brake them free, so as then they will start to actually turn again. Whereas just trying to use it with winches and hand winches, that didn't work. So fingers crossed that'll do that. But that's a long way off yet. We've got a lot to do before we reach that point. So what have we got here? Let me climb up and we'll give you a good old view. So we have got the gear stick. That is in neutral. High and low selector. This which does the PTO at the back, it still works. Something there that's marked up deeper, so if you want it deeper or shallower, who misses. We have then got the starter stick down here. We've got the fuel cutoff, ampermeter, oil, that which I presume is horn, that which is your throttle, and we've got this switch here, which I've got no idea what it does. It's got three positions. 1, 2, oh, hang on, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, oh, maybe 5 positions. I think that's your start and your something else, so we're going to have to work with that. I did try to Google that to find out what the positionings were on it, but I couldn't find anything. So that's there, that's all fine. Let's jump around to the other side. I think we need to change a battery as well. Okay, so around the other side of the machine, I've opened up the top, so as we can see in there, we can see a little bit better. These things, the engineering on them is really, really simple, and this is how it was done back in the olden days. There's none of this sensors and electronics and other bits and pieces. It is just dead simple stuff. So you got the fuel tank up here, and I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see it, but the fuel tank comes down here and into the settling bulb, which is just there. So we've got that just up in there is where that bulb is. That's where the fuel comes in. The fuel's currently turned off, so there's nothing in there just at the minute. So the fuel would then go through that bulb, and it then comes out and along here and along and down through this pipe here, down, 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 and it comes up into here. And this is the lift pump, which if it works will then help to pump the fuel around when we're out of fuel. So it then goes up this pipe here, through the filter, which has got a nice little arrow on the top of it, so you're able to see which way it ought to be going. And it then comes down there, through the injector, which is this bit here. So it then goes off to the 4 bits of the engine, 4 cylinders, that's it. I'm getting my words all wrong here. 4 cylinders of the engine, and then any excess comes back on this pipe here and returns back to the fuel tank. That's not all. There's also this little piece here, which if we come around here we can see again. So you got your starter, and then you got this little knob here, and you would normally pull that to stop the engine. That's what stops it, rather than being on a key in that. And you can see just here it is on this swingy bit, but that is all the movement that is in it, and I don't think that's right. That needs more movement in it than just that to be able to stop and start the engine. So we might have to look at that. Other than that, everything looks as if it should be all right. For those interested, it's got 1620 hours on the clock. This is your starter. It does need a new boot on it. So when you engage the starting lever, see that there, that moves forward, and then bosh, that would go all the way in, and that would start you going. It is, I believe, a positive earth, because if we look, we've got one of the things that's got P on it, and that goes straight off to earth, and the one which goes off and does things has got N on it, so it is a positive earth. When the person was tinkering with it before, they actually changed all of the glow plugs here. You can see these, let me try and get you into position. There we go. So the glow plugs, these things here, they have all been changed. They haven't been wired in, but we're not going to need them today, I would hope, because we're in the middle of June, so you don't really need to heat up anything just now today. What else have we got? We got the air intake. These things have air intake, and then the air actually goes through oil to really purify it. Not done on modern vehicles that I'm aware of, and then it then goes off into the engine. So our plan for today is we're going to bring the battery in. We're going to put the battery in here, get it wired in, and we're going to see if we can get it going. Give it a go. As I said, last time somebody tried it, they had the engine turning over, but they didn't get it to fire up. So first things first, we got to turn on the fuel and get the fuel around to the injectors, and as soon as we got it around at the injectors, then we can start to have a look at starting it and seeing if it'll go. Woohoo! Right, let's crack on, give that a go and see where we're at. Okay, so I got you guys set up somewhere, and hopefully you can see, but I just took out the glass, which is the settling tank, and I just gave it a bit of a quick wipe over, and we'll just put that back in, tighten her up, and I hope you can see what's going on. So what we'll do now is we'll try to turn the fuel on, and fingers crossed that will start to fill with fuel. Let me move you in somewhat closer. It's a bit tricky with the light and everything else like that, so where can you see from? That's the problem. Oh no, we got bad news. There's nothing coming through. There is fuel in the tank, but there's nothing coming through. Absolutely nothing. Right, let me look at that and we'll get back to you. Right, so everything just happened so quickly I didn't have a chance to go through and to film it all. As you can see, what I've done is I've taken off the fuel tap. This is what turns it on and off, and then the glass bowl was sat underneath that, and then the fuel will go off through here and go down to the engine. So it comes in through the fuel tank here, goes down into the bulb underneath, which is where it gets rid of all of the settlement and any other gunk and rubbish, and then it comes out through the top, through this one, off to the engine, as I just explained. This tap turns it on and off. So as you saw, I turned it on and there was nothing coming through, which meant it was blocked here. And yeah, it was blocked. So I was able to unscrew this from the fuel tank, and you might be able to see it's still dripping through, which is why I'm not doing anything up there. I'm not putting the camera underneath there, because the last thing I want to do is get diesel oil on the camera lens. So yeah, so that was blocked. And to give you an example, this is brand new fresh diesel. This has come out of a jerry can that I used to fill up the other tractors, and the fuel that came out of there is this stuff here. Hopefully you can see it even in the sun. If I scoot around like, no, that makes it look even worse, doesn't it? Yeah, look at that. You see, you can really see that. That looks more like milkshake, or maybe a black coffee or something. But yeah, that is meant to be diesel. But that came out of that fuel tank there. So manky, dirty, horrible, nasty stuff. I might have to get the endoscope in there. That's at home. I'll go and get that and stick that in there. Just have a quick look and check that tank. This here is now clear. I was able to get a piece of wire in there. It was just basically gunk, and it looked like rusty rubbish and some other stuff, which is why I'm a little bit concerned if it's rusty, that it might have done something internally. But what it does mean is that we'll get it through, we'll get the fuel through, we'll get it going, we'll let it run for a bit on fresh diesel, and then once it's run for maybe say half an hour, or it's cleared at least a couple of gallons worth of diesel through, then we'll go around and we'll change the diesel filter up here. We'll get that changed, and we'll just make sure that then everything is running fine and dandy. So I'm now going to put that back on, and I'm going to go home, get the endoscope, and we'll whack the endoscope in there, and we'll have a quick look around the tank before we go on and we do anything further, just to make sure that there's not massive rusty bits contained within that tank. So whilst I'm waiting for the endoscope to go in, have a look. Actually, I'll put the cap back on whilst we're waiting. Yeah, that's it. We've got a cheapo service station replacement gas cap in there. I thought, you know, while I'm waiting for that, I'm still down here, let's crack on with a few other bits and pieces, and we'll take a look and we'll see what we can do. So the person who came out and done the tinkering, they left these little bits of wire here, and you can see them down there, and they are basically to hook up the heater plugs. So you go from one to the other, and you can see that's the main input for it there. So that would go up onto that one, and then you just basically daisy chain off of them. So I thought, fine, I'll do that. Start off on a nice easy one. I get my spanner and I get it in there, and I just undo the first one, and we'll go from there. Wrong end of the spanner, get the right end, and can you see what's happening there? I hadn't even realised that they have put heater plugs in, and you can see if I pull them out, see how they're rusty on the front end, but on the bit that actually does the heat pluggery, it's brand new. So I knew that they changed them, but I didn't realise that they had put them in there just blooming finger tight. So I think I'm going to be checking a lot more of this engine than what I planned. So I'm going to tighten these up, stick the wires on them, and then we'll go and get the endoscope. Right, we seem to have hit on a problem. I've got the multimeter out, as you can see here, and I put the battery in just to really make sure that everything doesn't catch fire and the whole thing doesn't burn down. So we've got it rigged up as it says on the leads, so the positive is going to earth, and the negative is the one that comes around. What happens with these, again, it is dead simple electronics. There isn't any PCBs involved. It comes down here, it comes down to what's called a starter solenoid. On the terminal for the starter solenoid that comes straight off of the battery is where your other wires come from that need power, that go off, so like that switch up at the top, and other bits and pieces. So when you activate the starter switch, which is this one here, see that, it comes along and it presses in there and it joins together terminals. So you're able to see we've got two wires, so it makes the circuit. So we got one wire which is coming down from the switch, so if it's switched on, so that's coming down and that's live all the time. That is live right now. Then we flick the starter switch, that then makes the circuit, and it then goes back to the starter solenoid, activates the solenoid, and that then sends power straight down this one here to the starter motor. But as you just saw, when I do that, nothing's happening. So you might say starter solenoid or other bits and pieces, but because we got the multimeter out, and because we're on a negative earth system, we've got the positive which is going back to there, and we're going to use the negative as our test. So we'll put that in there. I've got to try and do this all one-handed. Okay, watch that. I'll flick the starter. There you go. So we've got voltage to our starter, but our starter isn't doing anything. And I would say that's a problem. Next out, oldest trick in the book, get a hammer, give it a couple of taps, see if that frees it up. Otherwise, I'm going to have to start looking at getting a new one, which I don't really want to do. Okay, so we're actually a few weeks later. Trying to find time to jump in and do anything has been an absolute nightmare. As you can see, there's a couple of bits that have been done. I've actually removed the dash, just purely so as I could have a closer look behind it and see what was going on with the wiring and everything like that. But what I've done is I've been trying to get it started, as you know. And as we've explained previously, the power comes from the battery to the solenoid. From the solenoid, it goes off round to your starter thingy, and then it comes back through, and then it goes back round and round and round. But anyway, it ends up going to the starter motor, which is this thing down here. And it hasn't been working. We haven't been able to get it working. So what I've done now today is, you'll see I've connected up the battery properly. So as we've got the earth, which is on the positive terminal, because this is the positive earth machine, and I've placed a jump lead onto the terminal of the starter motor. The other end of the terminal, I'm going to click straight onto the battery, and you'll just hear, I've just done it, so I know what it's going to sound like, and you'll just hear what it sounds like, and then I'll explain what the actual issue is. So we'll take that, and ready, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so let's explain starter modes. I do apologise for the noise in the background. There's a combine harvester going around the field at the back. So what's happens is, with a starter motor, what normally happens is, just in the end bit here is a cog. And that little cog, once the starter motor is engaged, it flies forward and it goes onto a bigger cog, which is part of the engine. And that little cog turns the big cog, and that's what turns your engine, and you get the jig, 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 jig. Where it's just doing that, that little cog is spinning, but it's not actually going out to engage in the engine. Okay, I don't normally do this, but here's a little bit just put in. So you might have heard what I just said, and you might be sat there thinking to yourself, you got that wrong. And you'd be right, I did get that totally wrong. That's how a starter motor would normally work on a normal car. This is not a normal vehicle. Plus, number two, it's really, really old. So what happens is, down here you would see that this is the end of the lever from the starting bit. Obviously I've disconnected and I've pulled stuff apart because I'm going on with the next bit of the video, and that originally looked like that, and it had that in there, but what it also had was these bits, and these bits would have gone into the starter motor like that. So what would have happened is, when you push down to start it, it would have slid up that bit there that does the cogs into the bigger cog to get the engine going. And then when you stop it, it pulls it back. So rather than it being automatic, it's done mechanical. Ain't that cool? I never realised that until I just pulled it apart and looked at it and went, oh yeah, that's how it does it. So there we go. Anyway, back to the video. So I reckon we've got a problem somewhere within the starter motor. Now, it would be quite easy to say, whip the starter motor off and take a look. Unfortunately, this starter motor looks as if it's held in about 25 different places. So I think I'm going to have to take a look and see how I can remove the starter motor altogether. I also think that somewhere in the electrical system there's a bit of a short, because as you would have seen there, I went straight between that terminal and the terminal on the battery. If I connect the proper battery terminal up to it and we go through the normal way of starting using the starter lever, pressing that down, engaging it, getting the circuit done, what happens is that the voltage drops from being 12 volts to being 0 volts. And I reckon that's because there is a short somewhere on the line. But where we go straight over to the starter motor, it didn't do that. So it's either that or else I've got to get that reconditioned. I'm going to stop the video there because I think this is going to be long enough for this. This will just be part one. Don't worry, we've got more coming on this. You would have seen that I put all of the heater plugs back in. Oh, that's the combine going past, and so all the dust is kicking up. I put all the heater plugs back in, and I found out today that you actually have to use the heater plugs every single time you start it. It's no good just using it once at the start of the day and then having a warm engine. No, on these old girls, you need to use it every single time. So yeah, that's going to be great fun. So if you have any suggestions, please do leave them down in the suggestion thingy down below with a comment and that. And until the next video, thank you so much for watching, and bye bye.